This is a ninja technique that will make your drums slap and feel more alive. I'm talking about the magic snapback layer. I covered this secret sauce trick in my OG snapback video, but today we're going to go even deeper with tips on how to design and customize the punch and feel of your drums, both with basic audio editing and using a brand new feature we've added to version 1.1 of our Snapback plugin. So first, here's a quick recap on the snapback layer and why it's so powerful. This drum hit has a hard, sharp transient with an abrupt beginning. And here is a short reversed sample, aka a snapback layer. Now let's place the snapback layer so it leads into this transient. Listen to the difference with and without. So it's any information before the transient that adds a fraction of urgency and impact. Weirdly, I find a snapback layer can be both subtle and rather transformative. Depending on the sound, it can soften a transient or make it feel punchier, or it can add subliminal groove and life. And depending on your snapback's volume and tone, you can go from obvious EDM impact to subtle softening and flamming. I'll show you ways to dial in these different vibes later, but for now, here's how to make your own snapbacks. Just take any percussive sound, reverse the audio, and place it before your main drum hit. Depending on your sample's length, this reverse will probably sound too much. So for a tighter effect, fade and level the audio to get the groove and the impact just right. Bear in mind that you can do everything I'll cover in this video with audio editing like this. The main problem is workflow. If you want to change your drum pattern or audition different snapback layers, you basically have to start again and do all of these steps from the beginning. This is what inspired us to create our snapback instant layering effect, which uses look ahead to layer and audition snapback samples in real time. The love for snapback has been incredible. We've had a massively positive response from the music producer community. But if you don't own our snapback plugin, like I said, you can follow along using your DAW's audio editing. Okay, next let's look at a snappily simple trick to give kicks and snares more natural punch. I'll load the snapback plugin on my kick channel. This is our new Snapback version 1.1 update. Snapback owners, make sure you update to the latest version. To add a snapback layer before the beat, I could choose one from the factory library. But instead, I'm going to take the exact same kick sample and I'll drag and drop it into the snapback layer to import it. Once you've imported a sample, there's this new reverse button. Click it and the imported sound is reversed. Handily, once you've reversed a sample, Snapback will remember this state the next time you load that sound, no matter if you move or rename it. So you only have to reverse a sample once and that reverse state will be remembered forever. Okay, so now we have an obvious reverse effect. I'll increase attack all the way until the sound becomes a short snapback. So by tightly reversing the same drum hit into itself, this creates a snapback layer that changes the attack's impact. And because we're using the exact same sound, the new element feels totally connected to the main hit. Now, I like keeping the snapback full frequency, but you could filter out the lows and or highs to thin it out. And we can do the same trick, this time on a snare. Again, I'll import the snare into the plugin's snapback section. Then I'll click the button to reverse it. And I'll tighten the attack. So give it a try, take a drum hit and use a reverse copy of the exact same sound to give it subtle oomph and flair. Alternatively, instead of making a snapback out of the original sound itself, you can reverse all different types of percussion hits and textures. Here's another drum hit with snapback loaded on it. And here is a hi-hat sample. As I showed, you can drag and drop a sample into the snapback layer to load it in. Let's reverse the hat by clicking the button and then increase the attack to make a snapback. Using a bright sound like a hi-hat or cymbal will give a nice thwip and can help a kick or snare cut through. When using hats, I like to calm down the highs with some low-pass filtering. If you like your imported sample, click this Save button to store the sample in your user folder. The sound will be saved as a unique sound with the reversing baked in. Instead of using a hi-hat, let's try a sound with more mid-range, something like a rim. Reversing rims, congas and snares into your main hit gives a woody impact that can sound punchy and organic. Or we could try a tom. Using thick, full-frequency drum hits as snapbacks gives more punch and thwack. And you don't have to stop at percussion. Let's drag in a piece of vocal. And we could even try a synth stab. So you get the idea, have fun and experiment with all types of reversed sounds to change the vibe of your drums. Okay, next, here's a workflow booster when working with large collections of samples. Say you've got a folder of percussion sounds you want to try out as snapback layers. Just navigate to your Snapback User Samples folder and copy your folder of samples into the Snapbacks folder. Now you can browse these samples via the Snapback Layers sample menu up here in the user column. And like I said earlier, you only need to reverse each sound once, and the reverse state is remembered. Next, here are some pro tips when making your own snapbacks. Whether you're using our Snapback plugin or creating snapback layers with audio editing, the most important thing to get right is the attack or fade in. Just a few tiny moves can be the difference between an obvious reverse effect and a subtle groovy pre-spike. So take the time to set your attack value or fade in amount to suit your sound. Then there's decay. Depending on the sound you use, if there's a double transient, a bit of fade out will calm that down. And what's cool is that in Snapback, once you've set your envelope values, they will stay the same as you browse through different sounds. Next, I've seen a few comments saying that using a snapback layer on drums has a very EDM kind of sound. And yes, when your snapback layer is bright, loud and obvious, it can give a classic dance feel to kicks, claps and snares. But the magic of the snapback technique is often in the subtlety. Filter out the highs and turn down the volume. I like to find the sweet spot where I can hardly hear the new layer, but I miss the subliminal feel when it's muted. Something else to keep in mind is that a snapback layer isn't just great for kicks and snares. Try it on percussion loops. Or plucky arps and riffs. Or even chopped vocals. Next, here's a tip for importing your own samples into our Snapback plugin. When using the Snapback layer, the plugin uses look-ahead latency to magnetically lock the sample before the front of each transient. The longer the sample you import, the more latency the plugin needs in order to work. So remember to keep the length of your imported samples as short as possible. And if you want to use longer snapbacks, say for special effects, then bounce them to audio to keep your latency down. For even more snapback tricks, from basic to advanced, make sure you watch this video. And find out more and try the demo at cableguys.com.